Princess Salira sat silently inside the transport pod, her golden eyes fixed on the window where stars drifted past in long streaks of silver. To others, the view might have seemed beautiful, but to her it felt like a reminder that she was being taken far away from anything familiar. She had been given away, offered like an object as part of a peace agreement between her people and the humans of Earth. The Varkali Empire did not hide their reasoning. She had been declared infertile at a young age by their genetic priests. She would never produce offspring, never strengthen the royal bloodline, never continue the legacy of her proud warrior ancestry. In the Varkali court, worth was measured by what one could create for the empire. A woman who could not give heirs had no value. That was the law of their ancient tradition. So when Earth requested peace after long negotiations, the king saw a perfect opportunity. He would offer something symbolic, something that would not weaken his empire. He offered his own daughter. Salira had expected sadness or anger within herself, but instead she felt mostly empty. She had long ago stopped hoping for affection from her people. She had accepted her fate quietly, as she always did. Still, there was a small sting when she remembered the king's final words to her before she boarded the ship. "Do not shame us," he had said. "Humans may treat you kindly in public, but do not forget, you are only useful now as a symbol. Do not expect anything more." She had bowed without speaking. What could she say? She had never been allowed to argue. The pod shook softly as it entered Earth's orbit. A mechanical voice spoke in her alien language, informing her that human officials were prepared to greet her. She exhaled slowly and straightened her posture. She would not let them see weakness. Even if she was unwanted by her people, she was still a princess. She would not forget her dignity. When the pod landed and the door opened, she expected to see a group of armored soldiers, maybe cameras, and a grand ceremony staged for political value. Instead, she saw only one man standing there. He wore a human military uniform, but it was plain and without heavy decoration. He had dark hair tied back neatly, sharp eyes, and a calm expression. He stood tall, but his stance was relaxed, not aggressive. He did not look at her like she was dangerous or strange. He simply waited. Salira stepped out, her long silver cloak flowing behind her. The air on Earth was different, warmer and softer than the dry atmosphere of her homeworld. She walked toward him slowly, expecting him to speak first. Instead, he bowed, not with a shallow nod, but with full respect. "Princess Salira," he said in her language, though with a slightly awkward accent. "I am Captain Elias Ward. I have been assigned to ensure your safety and comfort during your stay on Earth." Comfort. She almost laughed. That word did not exist in Varkali politics. There was duty, honor, strength, but never comfort. Perhaps humans use softer words for everything. Still, his tone did not sound mocking or false. He seemed genuinely respectful. "You speak my language," she replied, her voice calm. "I studied it for this assignment," he said. "I wish to greet you properly." She observed him carefully. No mocking grin, no hidden smirk, no disgust. Curiosity, yes, but also sincerity. She did not know what to make of him yet. "Where are the others?" she asked. "The officials? The cameras?" He gave a small smile, as if he was amused by her question, but too polite to laugh. "There was a plan for a large ceremony," he admitted, "but I requested that it be cancelled." "Why?" she asked. "Because you are not a trophy to be displayed," he answered simply. She blinked slowly. She had never heard anyone speak like that, certainly not about her. "Then what am I?" she asked without emotion. She had long ago embraced bluntness. "A guest," he replied, "until you decide otherwise." She stared at him for several seconds. On her homeworld, decisions were never given to her. Everything was decided for her. Yet this human was saying she could choose. "Very well," she said. "Lead the way, Captain." He nodded once and motioned politely toward a transport vehicle. He did not push her forward. He did not guide her by force. He simply walked beside her as an equal. She entered the vehicle and he sat across from her. The doors closed and the hum of the engine filled the silence. She studied him quietly. His uniform was well kept but worn, as if he had been in real battles. His hands were strong but bore scars. He was not a ceremonial figure. He was a man who had faced conflict. "You are a soldier," she said. "I am," he replied. "Do you approve of this arrangement?" she asked. "Do humans accept such gifts?" He paused before answering, choosing his words carefully. "Humans do not trade people," he said, "but I understand that cultures have different traditions. My duty is to make sure yours does not feel like captivity." She tilted her head. She was not sure if she believed him yet. Still, he had not lied so far. The transport took them through a vast human city filled with tall, glowing structures and countless moving vehicles. The colors were overwhelming. Earth was louder than her world, more chaotic, more alive. Eventually, they reached a large human military facility. She expected metal walls and strict surveillance. Instead, she was surprised to find that her assigned living quarters were not cold or prison-like. It was a spacious room with soft lighting, shelves filled with books, and a large transparent window that overlooked a lake. A bed with gentle fabric stood by the wall. There were even plants, green and strange but beautiful. She walked inside slowly, touching nothing. Captain Elias stood near the doorway. "If there is anything you dislike, it can be changed," he said. "This is your space now." She turned to face him. "Do you truly believe I will be allowed to live freely?" "As freely as possible," he answered honestly. "There are diplomatic expectations. But within those limits, I will ensure you are treated with respect." She nodded slowly. She did not thank him. In her culture, gratitude was shown through action, not words. For the next few days, she lived quietly in her quarters. Elias visited often, not to question her or monitor her, but simply to check if she needed anything. He brought her human foods, carefully selected based on her species' dietary compatibility. Some dishes were strange, but she appreciated the effort. He also brought her books translated into her language, stories of human history, exploration, and philosophy. She read them at night while watching the reflection of the moon on the lake. Humans were peculiar. They hated war but constantly prepared for it. They cherished peace yet argued endlessly among themselves. They were inconsistent but honest in their chaos. One evening, Elias arrived with something unexpected. It was a small instrument made of polished wood and metal strings. "This is called a violin," he said. "Humans use it to create music. I thought you might like to hear it." She raised an eyebrow. "I have heard music before. Our war chants are played before battle to raise strength." "This is different," he said softly. He lifted the instrument and placed it against his shoulder. He drew the bow across the strings, and a gentle sound filled the room. It was not loud or fierce like Varkali war drums. It was soft, smooth, and full of emotion. It felt like wind moving over water. It felt like sorrow and hope at the same time. She stood still, listening without blinking. When he finished, she remained silent for several moments. "That was not battle music," she said quietly. "No," he replied. "It is music for peace." For the first time since arriving, she felt something warm in her chest. Not weakness, not vulnerability. Something else. Recognition, perhaps. The understanding that someone was trying to reach her without force. Days turned into weeks. Elias never treated her like a symbol. He treated her like a person. He never asked about her fertility, never offered pity. He asked instead about her hobbies, her preferences, her thoughts on human customs. He listened without interruption. She found herself talking more than she intended. One afternoon, while standing near the lake together, she finally asked a question she had been avoiding. "Do humans find worth in those who cannot produce offspring?" Elias looked at her with surprise before answering. "Of course," he said. "A person's value is not measured by reproduction. That is old thinking. We value kindness, intelligence, creativity. Some people choose not to have children and still live full lives." She turned her gaze back to the water. "My people do not believe such things," she said. "A woman who cannot give children has no legacy." "Is that what you believe?" he asked. She hesitated. Then she whispered, "I do not know what I believe anymore." He said nothing more. He simply stood beside her. That night she lay awake. She remembered her father's cold gaze, her people's whispers, the silence of her own chambers in the royal palace. Then she remembered Elias's music, his steady voice, his refusal to treat her like a tool. For the first time in her life, she wondered if she had been raised to accept chains that did not truly exist. But unknown to her, things were already changing. Human scientists had secretly monitored her health to ensure she was safe on Earth. They had expected stability. Instead, they found anomalies in her biology. Her cellular patterns were shifting. Dormant genes were activating. The next morning, military medics escorted Elias urgently to a meeting room. Silira waited in her quarters, unaware of the whispers spreading through the facility. The results were clear. Something impossible was happening inside her. And the source of the change was exposure to human environments, exposure to one human in particular. The next morning, Princess Sayalira awoke to the soft hum of the facility. She stretched, moving lightly as she glanced around the room. Everything felt ordinary, as if yesterday's quiet had been the same as today. But she did not know that her life and the lives of many others were about to change. Elias stood at the entrance of her quarters, holding a data pad. His expression was serious but calm. "Princess Sayalira," he said, "there are developments you should know about. Please come with me." She raised an eyebrow. "Developments? What kind?" "You should see for yourself," he said. He led her down long corridors where human personnel moved quickly but respectfully, giving them space. The building was filled with quiet tension, the kind she had never seen on her homeworld. Even the humans, who were usually loud and bustling, now moved with hushed steps. They entered a sterile room where several humans in lab coats stood around a series of monitors. Sayalira could feel their attention, not hostile but curious, even reverent. She glanced at Elias, who gave a reassuring nod. "Princess," one of the scientists began, "we have been monitoring your biological patterns since your arrival. Something unusual has occurred. Your genes, previously classified as dormant, are showing signs of activation. This was considered impossible by your own species." Sayalira's golden eyes widened slightly. "Impossible?" she asked. "Yes," the scientist said. "It appears that the interaction with human environments, and specifically one human, has triggered a change in your physiology. The dormant markers your species believed infertile are now showing active potential." Sayalira froze. She had not thought much about her fertility before, and she had never expected humans to care. She looked at Elias, who remained calm and quiet, as if expecting her reaction but giving her space to process it. "This means," she asked carefully, "that you may now be capable of having an heir," the scientist said. "And according to your own records, this should be impossible." A tension-filled silence followed. Sayalira's mind swirled. In Varkali culture, fertility determined a woman's entire worth. But she no longer thought like her people. She thought of Elias, not as a symbol of duty, but as someone who had treated her with dignity, respect, and kindness. Meanwhile, on her homeworld, the news reached the king almost immediately. His eyes narrowed as he read the report. His daughter, whom he had considered worthless, was now suddenly capable of producing an heir. Fury built inside him, hotter than any battle rage. The humans had interfered. How dare they? How dare a human awaken what he had believed was impossible? Without delay, the king issued a command. Bring her back at once. She belonged to the Empire, and now she could produce a successor. The humans would not dictate what happened to his princess. On Earth, a human diplomatic delegation arrived. They delivered the king's order in a formal tone. Sayalira, standing beside Elias, listened quietly. The words felt heavy, oppressive. "You are coming with us," the delegation said. She turned to Elias. He looked calm as always, but there was a firmness in his eyes that she had come to trust. "I will not force you to go," he said quietly. "This is your choice." Sayalira's mind raced. She remembered the strict walls of her homeworld, the cold halls of her palace, the whispers that had surrounded her since birth. But she also remembered music, laughter, freedom, and a man who had treated her like she mattered. "I will not go," she said. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. The humans stared in surprise. The diplomats exchanged nervous glances, and the Varkali delegation was stunned. The princess had refused the command of their king. Word of her refusal spread rapidly. Across both planets, whispers grew into discussions, debates, and arguments. Humans spoke of personal choice and honor. Varkali citizens argued about obedience, legacy, and loyalty. Sayalira found herself at the center of a storm she had never expected. The Varkali king, furious, decided to take matters into his own hands. He arrived on Earth with a personal delegation, not for diplomacy, but for confrontation. The first moment he saw Elias standing calmly by Sayalira's side, the king's eyes blazed. "You dare protect my daughter?" he demanded, his voice like a whip across the room. Elias did not flinch. He simply answered, "She is not your property. She is a person and she chooses her own path." The king laughed bitterly. "You are a human. You cannot understand our ways. She belongs to me, to the Empire, and now she carries the hope of a new heir. Do you truly think you can defy me?" "I do," Elias said, "because honor is stronger than tradition." Respect is stronger than power, and she has the right to choose. Scylla stepped forward, her posture regal and firm. "Father," she said, her voice calm but unwavering, "the throne does not belong to those who demand obedience. It belongs to those who act with integrity. I will not return with you unless I choose to." The king's expression darkened. For the first time he realized that the human beside her was not only defying him physically, but also challenging the very foundations of his authority. "You will regret this," the king hissed. "No human can stand in the way of the empire." Elias smiled slightly, a smile without fear. "Then watch," he said. The conflict could have erupted into violence, but Scylla intervened. She raised her hand and invoked an ancient Varkali decree, one that few had remembered but none could ignore. "The one who awakens the lineage of a princess through honor and courage," she said, her voice echoing in the grand hall, "has rightful claim to stand beside me, not through blood, not through force, but through action and respect. Let this be witnessed by all," gasps echoed. The Varkali delegation froze. The human diplomats looked stunned. Even the king could not speak. Elias looked at Scylla, comprehension dawning. She was granting him a position he had never sought, one that could change the future of the Varkali Empire. "You would do this for me?" he asked quietly. "For all who act with courage," she said. "For all who value honor over tradition." The king finally recovered, anger blazing in his eyes. He challenged Elias publicly, expecting to crush the human effortlessly. His warriors were trained in the art of combat for decades, and his strength was legendary. But Elias did not draw a weapon. He did not fight with rage or aggression. Instead, he stood firm, showing restraint and control, using skill only when absolutely necessary to defend, never to harm. The Varkali people watched in awe. The human demonstrated a form of strength they had never valued properly, strength tempered with mercy, courage paired with patience. Murmurs spread quickly through the crowds. Perhaps humans were not as weak as they believed. Scylla observed quietly, pride swelling in her chest. This was a man who had proven himself not through birthright or power, but through his actions, his choices, his integrity. And in doing so, he had changed the perception of her people in ways she could never have imagined. Finally, the king stepped back, realizing that brute force would not win this day. The Varkali people, inspired by the display, rallied behind Scylla's declaration. "The throne requires honor," they said. "The throne requires wisdom." The king could only seethe in frustration. He had lost not by battle but by principle. He could not undo the moment that had altered the course of his empire. Elias approached Scylla. "It is done," he said softly. "You have changed everything." Scylla smiled, a rare and genuine smile. "No," she replied. "We have changed everything, together." Word of their story spread rapidly. Across the galaxy, humans whispered of a soldier who had shown the universe that courage and honor mattered more than power or lineage. Aliens marveled at the young princess who defied her king, choosing a path of dignity, freedom, and wisdom. For Scylla, the future was no longer dictated by the expectations of others. She had found a companion, a protector, and an equal in Elias, and together, they began a new chapter, not as tools of politics, not as pawns of tradition, but as leaders who could shape the destiny of two worlds. The galaxy watched in quiet awe. The infertile princess had become a symbol not of limitation, but of limitless possibility. And the human by her side, quiet, steadfast, honorable, had become the living embodiment of what it meant to be truly human. No one knew what the future would hold. But one truth had been established, clear and undeniable. Honor, courage, and respect could bridge worlds. And together they could change the course of history.